I'm Jamie Flinchball, and welcome to this course on sponsorship. First, I want to address why am I doing a course on this subject? Well, the reason is there isn't a lot written about it. There isn't a lot that we are trained on, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One, the people who suffer when sponsorship is bad aren't generally the ones doing the sponsorship. So they know the consequences, but they don't really know what effective might look like because they're not on the other side of that role. Second, there's this false assumption that once someone's at a certain level, once they've achieved that sort of level of in the organization, there's this belief that they must know these things, right? They just come naturally. Clearly, they're a leader, otherwise they wouldn't have been elevated to that kind of a role. And so therefore, they must know. But how would they? How would they be trained? How would they learn that naturally? A lot of the feedback loops don't really work because they're separated in time and space. And so the people in the sponsorship roles don't get feedback. Most of the negative things that are said are experienced away from them. And so the learning curve, the learning cycle is very, very difficult. And so I've seen for really decades the consequences of failed sponsorship. And so that's why I'm doing this course, is if we can just make it a little easier, a little smoother, make all of this work a little more effectively, then this is all worth it for me and for you. Now, sponsorship can play a lot of different roles. So I want to talk about really sort of a range of options and where you might have a sponsor. I think what's important is distinguish sponsoring from delegating. So delegating is when all the resources are fundamentally on your team. You're asking them to do a task, you're asking them to do their job. And so that's direction, right? That's delegation. And many of the same lessons around good sponsorship still apply, but it is a fundamentally different role. So most of the time, sponsorship cuts across the organization. The people doing the work may not report to you, maybe some of them do, maybe some of them do a couple levels below you, but most likely there's involvement from other parts of the organization. Now, obviously, if you're the CEO, you're still in a role to be a sponsor, and by definition, everyone probably reports to you at some level. But that's different than directing your direct reports, right? And so we want to understand that we're putting a set of resources together to accomplish something, and that doesn't function the same as the kind of conversation we would have in a staff meeting and our regular one-on-ones. So large transformations are one example in which we have significant sponsorship. This could be you're upgrading or transforming your ERP system. This could be you're integrating a new acquisition. You're doing a major reorganization or expanding a significant product line. And so lots of things that cut across and fall outside the realm of normal day-to-day work. So in all of those instances, there needs to be a sponsor, right? Someone to pull all of that work together, to provide the guidance, to provide the decision-making, so that significant project that probably takes months, if not a couple of years, can be done effectively and smoothly. So large transformations, absolutely one place where sponsors are important. Sort of in the middle would be things that are well known as Kaizen events or rapid improvement events. Now these events, they've existed for several decades. They were originally fundamentally a tool to teach people how to do lean and continuous improvement. But it was all jam-packed into 1 week. Well, those events need sponsors. And it certainly evolved past a teaching tool. It's become a sledgehammer, but nevertheless an effective sledgehammer at pulling a team together, focusing on a single problem, often a process improvement, and plowing through that with high alignment. And so in those events, they need sponsors. Now, unfortunately, as the Kaizen event, continuous improvement event has evolved, it's much less likely these days that it gets done in 1 week, which was often the norm. Now, there's some good reasons for this, or valid reasons for this, and some bad reasons for this. The valid reason is often that there's more software involved, more external parties involved, and harder to get all the resources identified, or pulled in and able to execute in that time frame in a safe and effective manner. But more importantly, I think some of the bad reasons are, number one, we bite off more than we can chew. Rather than do the work that scales down to the work we can accomplish in a week, we take on too much, and then stuff doesn't get done. So that happens all the time, and now we're looking at an extended event. Another is that we say, oh, we can't afford a week to go do this work, but instead we apparently can afford months and months of plowing through this less efficiently. But we don't commit the time up front to get things done. And then last is the actual failure of sponsorship. We don't have the permissions we need to get the work done in that week. And I'll say there's no excuse for that, because that's the role the sponsor should provide. So whether the Kaizen event is something that does take place over months and months, or is still really well bounded inside of a week's event, it still needs a good sponsor, someone outside the room that's really directing that work. And we'll talk more about what that role is in further videos. And then lastly, sort of at a smaller scale, is almost any work where 2 groups, 4 groups, whatever that might be, need to come together and change something. Again, this is not just day-to-day execution, but often some type of change, some type of transformation, some type of problem solving that has to be done. So even if you're just sticking 2 teams together to say, hey, go work on this, go collaborate, you need to talk to you, and you need to get your teams together and figure this out. Well, that needs sponsorship too. So even at a basic problem solving, continuous improvement level, where we are working across boundaries, we need some level of sponsorship. It's often much less formal, but it's still very real. So those are a couple instances. And when you start to understand that spectrum of where being a sponsor can apply, now we can start to understand how often we actually need good sponsorship in the organization. We don't transform our ERP system or integrate a new acquisition every day, but every day we are likely bringing 2 groups together to go collaborate on a problem-solving effort or improvement. And so at that fundamental level, we should see that sponsorship, whether in name or in simply behavior, is something that we need to pay attention to almost every day. So through the rest of this course, we'll explain the role of sponsorship, the failure modes, how to get it right, and really also distinguish it from the other roles so that we understand where it fits in the whole ecosystem of the work of getting stuff done. So continue on, and we'll enjoy our learning together. Thank you.